Greetings, nerdlings, and welcome to AmalgamNation presents World of Lorecraft, Racecraft, Goblin Edition. On a side note to this particular edition of World of Lorecraft, let me know which you prefer, Sunday's edition or today's edition, sound-wise, please, if anybody's listening to this at all, because to me it sounds a bit weird, although that could be either a problem with my mic, a problem with my headset, or just I'm going fucking crazy. Now, on with today's episode. Goblins are small humanoids, crafty and shrewd, bearing an overwhelming interest in commerce and a strong curiosity about mechanical things. Goblin society is fragmented, defined chiefly by commerce and trade. The ultimate schemers and con artists, goblins are always in search of a better deal. Despite their seemingly chaotic natures, they exist in a fairly strict and straightforward hierarchy. Other races universally view goblins as inventors, merchants, and without exception maniacs. Goblins value technology as a useful aspect of commerce. Some say that their advantage and their curse is to be the primary users of technology in a world governed by magic. While dwarves and gnomes share a similar gift, goblin technology is more far-reaching and sinister, makes a larger impact on the natural world, and explodes more often. They employ vast teams of engineers who expand on current technology and produce gadgets to suit a wide array of applications. They constantly build and repair machines and work on new ideas, such as the Goblin Glider. Unfortunately, goblins alternate passionate genius with wandering focus. Their lack of discipline means that many creations end up half-finished as something else catches their attention. Goblin workmanship has a partially deserved reputation for unreliability, and a goblin device may explode simply because its creator forgot to add a vital release valve. Goblins are envious of the Ironforged dwarves' invention of firearms, both from a commercial and a technological standpoint. Goblins recognize that firearms represent a new source of power, and he who controls the source controls the gold, which is the goblins' the ultimate power. Fortunately for the rest of the world, goblin firearm experimentation suffers from the race's normal laxity, and improperly tended gunpowder experiments continue to end the careers of many aspiring goblin thinkers. However, goblin ingenuity has paid off a few times. Goblin gunpowder weapons tend to be intelligent and violently explosive, landmines, rockets, and the like. Goblins are shrewd in business, and clients who believe they walked away with the upper hand are almost always sorely mistaken. To cheat a goblin is a dwarven idiom meaning to do what is practically impossible, i.e. Gamgee cheated a goblin when he escaped that cave-in. Goblins are also consummate tricksters and con artists. Their mission in the world is to create incredible new inventions, accrue the resulting wealth, and cause as much subtle mischief as possible along the way. The goblins fought alongside the Horde in the Second War, but broke off when they realised that it's more profitable to work both sides. However, many goblins remember the fun of the Horde and are willing to lower mercenary prices to Troll and his people. Goblins offer almost exclusive transport services for the Horde, whether in their steamboats or zeppelins. You're more likely to find a team of goblin sappers who take great pleasure in the chaos the Horde creates, meshed into Horde forces, than those of the Alliance. Perhaps with enough persuasion, the goblins could be convinced to rejoin the Horde for the first time since the Second War. That has actually happened already in-game. They're part of the Horde now. Goblin biology. Goblins are slight and wiry, averaging 3.5 feet in height. They have long, sharp noses, chins and ears, and green skin. Their arms are long and slender, and their fingers deft. They tend to wear leather clothing, often cut into aprons to protect against caustic fluids. Goggles usually cover their eyes, and various technological devices are strapped across their bodies. Goblins that have hair often have it as mohawks, ponytails, or spiky. They are commonly heard speaking with a Brooklyn-style accent. Goblin history. First appearances. Goblins first appeared in Warcraft 2, published by Blizzard Entertainment in December 1995, and have appeared or been referenced in many sources since. Their earliest appearance chronologically was in the War of the Ancients trilogy. Neltharion created the Demon Soul before the War of the Ancients with the help of goblin artificers, hinting that the goblins may be an ancient race. The Faceless of the Deep also mentions remembering when they were created, potentially hinting the involvement of the old gods, or at least the longevity of their servants. Early history. Goblins have been around for a long time, but the creatures were very reclusive. Long ago, the goblins were a native race of the Isle of Kazan and didn't have a fraction of their current intelligence. There the race lived as slaves to the local jungle trolls, mining the subterranean tunnels where the trolls didn't like going. However, soon the goblins unearthed a mineral known as Kajamite, a strange mineral named after Mount Kajaro. The trolls valued the mineral, using it in voodoo rituals, and forced the subterranean goblins to continue mining the mineral. The goblins soon came to sense, at some basic level, that the mineral held enchantments unknown to the trolls. Goblins hoarded the mineral, using it to fashion crude objects of power deep within undermined, twisting tunnels. However, the mineral had some unexpected side effects. It caused the goblins to grow in intelligence. Soon goblins developed technology, if just crude weapons and armour. With their increased intelligence, goblin cunning rose, and soon the race enacted a plan to free themselves from the trolls, and in an ironic twist turned the trolls into their slaves. In little time the goblins owned the Isle of Kezan and declared Undermine their capital. Goblins rapidly expanded their knowledge of technology. Goblins created Azeroth's first steam technologies. Rumours are that goblin technology back then was far more advanced than even current dwarven technology. Goblins established themselves as master technicians, selling their goods on the open market. However, the power within the Kajamite artifacts were finite and soon dwindled, needing to be replaced. Eventually the Kajamite ran out altogether. Desperate, goblins spread out into the world, attempting to find any pockets of Kajamite they might have missed. Unfortunately, over the next few thousand years, up until roughly 500 years before the First War, the goblins could find no further deposits of Kajamite, and goblin intelligence peaked. Without Kajamite to strengthen their minds, goblins were unable to reproduce their brilliant technology or properly maintain it, and their works rapidly devolved into the crude, jury-rigged machines of today. The world began to fear the volatile machines, and sales dropped considerably. Goblins always had a love of money, however. With the loss of their intelligence and slow degradation of their technology, goblins embraced commerce. About 200 years before the First War, the beginnings of the trade fleets sailed out of Kezan and into the world. First and Second Wars. Goblins chose war as the perfect opportunity to cash in some gold, and began building their trade empire during the First War. By the Second War, the goblins had established themselves as the traders of the world. Then they became exclusive partners with the Horde. A Horde ambassador ventured forth and met with a single trade prince, rumoured to be the Steamweedle cartel, perhaps Trade Prince Steamweedle, asking for the goblins to provide machines and technology to the orcs, in exchange for spoils and gold. In the beginning, the arrangement seemed perfect. The goblin trade prince believed that the orcs would win the war, so he found it natural to join the winning side. As the profits flooded Undermine's coffers, the goblins expanded their slave markets. However, other goblins disagreed and remained neutral, thus only this single trade prince and his subordinates joined the Horde. In the end, the trade prince realised his mistake and left the Horde, and the goblin race remembers the mistake. The goblin race as a whole, in fact, was neutral until the Cataclysm. They discovered it was more profitable to play both sides against each other during the three wars. Second and Third Wars. Goblins came to the dubious fame in the Second War for the suicide missions they undertook for the Horde, strapping explosives to themselves and floating behind enemy lines with the aid of an inflated sheep's bladder. In the aftermath of the conflict, the goblins established that they had no political orientation. Their only real interest was trade. If you had the coin for their goods, they were your friends. Such neutrality gave them as broad a trading basis as possible for their wares, from magic items to mundane goods to their own mechanical inventions. It is rumoured that they joined during the Second War, either because the orcs paid or intimidated them. On the whole, the Alliance and the Horde respected the goblins' new power, taking advantage of the trade prince's ability to produce or procure otherwise difficult to acquire items. Rumours have emerged of goblins engaging in massive strip mining and deforestation operations to harvest the raw materials, however, which caused the nature-loving night elves and Tauren great concern. Since the tales have surfaced, the trade princes suffered guerrilla attacks on their supply trains and sabotage of their factories. The goblins were clever enough to know the list of suspects is a short one, and they appeared undaunted by the threat. They have amassed enough wealth to hire additional security for their mercantile concerns. Cataclysm and joining the new Horde. After the Cataclysm reawakened the volcano on their home island, one of the goblins' trade princes, Gallywix, realised that there was good money to be made in offering panicked goblins a ticket to safety on his ship. taking their life savings and then selling them into slavery. A clever plan until it and the ship fell apart in a naval crossfire between an Alliance fleet and a lone Horde ship. The shipwreck survivors washed ashore on the Lost Isles off the coast of Kalimdor, where they discovered that the island's dense jungles harbour many mysteries and more than a few unpleasant surprises. There, the Goblins of Kazan have found a new enemy in the Alliance. Unexpected and unprofitable encounters with this faction have driven certain trade princes from their comfortable neutrality. Reforging old pacts with their one-time allies, the Goblins have been welcomed into the Horde with open arms. There, the Goblins secured their relations with the Horde, and former war chief and perhaps the most respected Orcish hero, Thrall, gave his personal assurance that Azshara would be given to the Bilgewater cartel with a reformed Gilliwix as its leader. He followed through on his promise, and one by one Goblins would flood into Azshara, where they would turn it into a technological wonder where the Goblins' mechanical skills are shown in the environment. Goblin breeding. According to the comment made by one of the Warcraft RPG developers and Gaxum Rustfizzle, Goblins breed like rabbits, which counts for them quickly outnumbering and eventually destroying any other races in the areas they settle around. Such is the case with Tanaris, where Goblins outnumbered the native Sand Fury trolls, as well as the Isle of Kazan, where they also pushed the native trolls out of the majority of the land. The only reason that the Goblins don't outmatch the Horde and Alliance in population is because Goblins often blow themselves up. Goblin cooking. Several Goblins are also renowned for their skills as chefs. Cooking recipes such as Goblin deviled clams and undermined clam chowder are a staple of the trade pioneered by the spindly green race. Adventurers in Azeroth wishing to advance their skill in culinary arts to the artisan level are directed to assist Dirge Quickcleave, the master chef of Gadgetzan, in his creation of the succulent new dish Clamlet Surprise. Another renowned Goblin chef, Legacy, who is stranded in Hellfire Peninsula after a Zeppelin crash, directs players in the creation of several new tantalizing dishes as well. Goblin faith and languages. Goblins place their faith in themselves and in gold. They raise eyebrows at insubstantial concepts such as shamanism and the holy light, preferring gods they can see, weigh, and spend. Goblins speak Goblin, Orcish, and Common. Goblins know myriad languages in order to trade with as many races as possible, and thus increase their profit, or at least their chances of making a profit. Goblin government. The Goblins run themselves on a trade-based society where the richest, more successful business owners run the people. On their native home of Kazan, there are no kings, just trade princes. Trade princes are the most powerful members of Goblin society, each having their own cartel. One independent Goblin state will most likely be governed by a single or many different trade families. Trade cartels also have their own armies and security, which is used as average law enforcement in Goblin society. A couple of examples of largely known trade cartels are the Bilgewater cartel and Steamweedle cartel. Goblin technology and engineering. Though once nothing but fodder for more taproom banter, Goblin inventions have shown their worth in recent years. They're particularly fond of tinkering with mechanical things, alchemy, and explosives. Their love of mechanics often places them into direct competition with gnomes who enjoy similar devices. The competition between Goblins and gnomes seems to be friendly. An example of this is in the Shimmering Flats, where the two races are constantly competing by racing with one another. Whether clockwork shredders that allow a single Goblin to do as much harvesting as 10 field hands, or Zeppelin-like airships that can ferry troops over otherwise impassable terrain, the Goblins' inventions have become legendary. Such technological ingenuity is as central to the Goblins' rise among the races as any trading prowess. Even with the malfunctions and explosions that occur, Goblin technology is proving to be of a quality that rivals the dwarves and their firearms. If they possessed physical strength and mystic power to match their inventiveness and cunning, they could be a force of some significance. Of course, the Goblins claim that they already are. If not for their frail physical forms, Goblins would rule the world. Then they laugh and say they prefer challenge and offer to buy the taproom guest the next round. Inspirations for the Goblins. It is widely supported yet unproven theory that the main inspirations for the Goblins were the gremlins of their destructive nature and looks, as well as the Ferengi of Star Trek, for their industrialized society where one's worth is equal to the belongings he can gather and hold, though this trait seemed to only develop after the Second War, or more precisely after Warcraft 2. Although Ferengi had been introduced in Star Trek around the beginning of the 1990s, in the next generation. Most of the traits common between the Goblins and Ferengi were introduced in Deep Space Nine, which began running in late 1993 when Warcraft 2 was well in development. By the time production of Warcraft 3 began in the late 90s, the lore and culture of the Ferengi was much more developed. Prior to Warcraft 3, Goblins had been depicted in a way more consistent with Games Workshop's Gretchen, which in the Warhammer and 40k universes are a lesser subspecies of orcs who are bullied into doing dangerous jobs and building weapons and vehicles for the benefit of regular orcs. The Goblins' love of money and proclivity toward capitalistic trade may be inspired by the Goblins of Gringotts Bank in the Harry Potter series written by J.K. Rowling, or perhaps by the folklore of goblins, leprechauns, and other fairy folk who are said to live underground and hoard or covet gold. Goblin trivia. In World of Warcraft, the Goblins borrow a basic skeleton from dwarves, although their profile photo is at a different angle. They also possess a unique dance and other different animations. The older Goblin model used for Shredder pilots and flight masters takes the basic skeleton from imps. Some Goblin NPC names have a second meaning out of context with the game environment. As a fashion designer, the Goblin Haughty Modiste name is constructed of the words haughty, a form of disdainful arrogance, and modiste, a French word that means fashion designer or fashion vendor. Likewise, Snark Bucksquick, a Zeppelin master, talks openly about escorting the player's character to the steamy jungles of Stranglethorn Vale to show them a real jungle cat. Female goblins use the female gnome sounds in combat. Although there aren't many female goblin NPCs that you can fight, all you need to do is go at war with one of the goblin factions and fight one in order to hear it. A goblin is an evil, crabby or mischievous creature of folklore, mainly European, but other mythologies have similar creatures, often described as a grotesquely disfigured or gnome-like phantom who may range in height from that of a dwarf to that of a human. Before patch 2.3.0, goblins could not wear or at least show head items. Kiz Coilspanner was the first to show this, followed by the Helm the Radiated Workers models being switched from gnomes to goblins. Chris Messon stated in the November 2003 issue of Blizzard Insider number 15 that goblins were originally considered for the Fourth Alliance race, but they were widespread as a neutral trading faction, so gnomes became a better fit. In the starter area when in the car, if you hit the radio button, you can hear the theme from Brewfest, as well as an altered version of the Mario theme and The Legend of Zelda. The goblins of the Bilgewater Cartel are a possible reference to the Gluckons from Abe's Odyssey, as they both got cartels, moolah as currency, a popular soda drink, a rather large amount of slaves, and names with puns about themselves, Vice President Aslick, for example. In the quest The New You gain shiny clothing and sunglasses for a party since you become the boss, possibly related to Lulu, a Gluckon that became rich and started dressing the same way. Okay, just to let you know, I did skip over some of the Goblin lore because there's quite a lot of it, and I've got other things that I have to record today if I want to get back on track. Since there was a mishap with my computer not so long ago, I'm still getting back on track, even though it might look like I'm semi-back on track. I'm not fully back on track. And if I say the phrase back on track one more time, somebody please shoot me. But yeah, I'm working on a lot of vids today to get things back to normal. So I skipped over some of the lore. If you would like me to do a second vid about Goblin lore, please comment below and I will do so. Thank you for listening, and as always remember, play to game and game to play.